And one day he got out of his seatbelt and he got like knocked out by a pebble. And then he woke up and freaked out and like was clawing Tim. So he stopped and they took the monkey out and it probably cost him the win. That's real life NASCAR.
What? Welcome to Going In Tight. Coming out loose. Welcome back, everybody, to Going In Tight, Coming Out Loose. This is Chris Gibson, and with me, as always, is Bart Lewis. We are really excited about our episode this week. We are interviewing Jon Wood a little bit later on in this episode, and we also are bringing back True False. It's something that we haven't done in a little bit as we've had the off season and a couple interviews as of late, but we are bringing that back. So Bart's going to try and stump me again. So you all should have fun listening to me trip over myself there. And then we are right now coming up about to debut our second installment of NASCAR Storied, and it's about the beaches of Daytona. Bart, why did you choose this story to tell everybody?
Well, the beaches of Daytona definitely have a big impact on NASCAR as a sport in general. And if you've ever been to Daytona, it's just like a different vibe that you get, especially going to the track. So I've always been interested in Daytona. It's one of my favorite tracks for sure. Loving history and all the things that happened there. I've just kind of gravitated to this being my first story. So I hope that you guys like it. In northeast Florida, there lies a beach town. Not too big and not too small, filled with high-rise hotels, a boardwalk, and an amusement park. A bit outdated, a boom in the 80s, leaves a lot of old and with a dash of new. Peeling paint and a bit of must can be found throughout. A prime that once was, or a town that likes a little bit of character. Stories of a college spring break, bike week, or a more wholesome family vacation can be found all over these hard sandy beaches. Imagine a beach filled with cars idling down in a slow line next to beachgoers. Cars with no destination, with no purpose, other than to say they drove this uncommon beach road, or to take in the sights as they head out to another reality. A town that once was, or still is, well, that's in the eye of the beholder. A smorgasbord of reasons can bring you, but what will keep you in Daytona Beach, Florida? For some, it's not the beaches at all. Just a short distance from the main hustle and bustle of vacationers lies a 180-acre complex drenched in racing history. The speed is like a punch from Cale Yarborough or Donnie Allison. The high banks will test your eyes as you follow a pack of 22,000 horses across the 2.5-mile superspeedway. A group of 123,000 of your like-minded peers standing alongside you, all with a different agenda. A sound so quick and deafening to leave you as quick as it came, a rumble through your chest, a swift wind through your hair. The smell pungent with rubber and gas as the big one unleashes its fury. The taste of a cold beer grasped from the cooler nestled between your feet. The track will test your senses and your emotions. The excitement of a photo finish, the win of an underdog, a crown jewel finally notched, and the tears of the loss of a legend. A track where you'll find a family business, a newcomer with a dream, and the best talent known to any steering wheel. Daytona International Speedway will keep you here. This will keep you coming to Daytona Beach, Florida. Have you ever found yourself on a long road trip, bored? You look around as you drive down the interstate through farm country and think, I wonder how fast this puppy will go. Your heart begins to race as you press the gas pedal to the floor. 90, 100, 110? Okay, that's enough, you think to yourself. And this may just be me, but that experience on a nicely paved interstate was still enough to make you think about the outcome had you hit a pothole. Now imagine that being on sand. Yeah, that'd be a bit riskier. In 1903, car enthusiasts and rich playboys brought their cars to the beaches of Daytona to do just that. The first record on the beach? 68 miles per hour. This was no record-breaking speed at the time, but in 1904, the first world speed record was made by William Vanderbilt in a Mercedes, at a whopping speed of 92 miles per hour. The hard-packed sand was perfect for drivers who wanted to test the limits and try for a world speed record. Speed trials would be held on these beaches until 1935, when Sir Malcolm Campbell set the last record at 276 miles per hour in his 25-foot Rolls-Royce Bluebird. Campbell's car packed a 12-cylinder engine with 1,450 horsepower. Campbell was no stranger to speed records, and he'd set a total of 9 in his life. But the 30 years of speed trials at Daytona would come to an end as this yearly event was moved to the Bonneville Salt Flats of Utah. But the days of racing on the beaches of Daytona was only getting started. A 25-year-old Bill France Sr. was in attendance that spring day in 1935 when Sir Malcolm Campbell was setting the last land speed record. Mesmerized with the beauty of the area and also needing escape from the Great Depression, Bill and his wife moved there from Washington, D.C. to start their own service station. In 1936, the first ever Daytona Beach road course race was held. The 3.2-mile track proved to almost be impossible to pass on. Far from a success, the race was plagued with scoring disputes, technical protests, and ended a few laps short of what was planned. As there was no formal gates or grandstands, spectators were able to get a free show. The event lost so much money, the city of Daytona would never be involved in promoting another race. France, a racer at the time, finished 5th and became very interested in getting involved in promoting races. He saw the demand and the potential, but making it work for all parties was a code that was not easy to crack. France knew that the efforts of stock car racing would first need to be organized. Illegal car modifications, disputed scoring, and even promoters heading out of town with the prize winnings was allowing for a new sport and chaos. A decade of learning curves would begin. Imagine walking into a smoke-filled bar in the late 40s. Men in suits, hats, and ties as wide as they were short. Music playing that could hardly be heard over the camaraderie of conversations being fueled by a little liquid courage. A pack of cigarettes could be found at every table with ashtrays with a mountain of butts, a sign that the occupants had been there a while. This particular bar was perched on the roof of a 3-story hotel just 200 yards from the beach. The Ebony's Club rooftop bar was filled with mechanics, drivers, car owners, promoters, and officials, all of which had a background in running a little shine at one time or another. This group of men were brought together by none other than Bill France Sr., and on a cool December night in 1947, talks would begin that would create legitimacy to a sport of stock car racing. After 69 days of conversations and ideas, NASCAR would be born at the Streamline Hotel. Over the next 10 years, the Daytona Beach road course was inhabited with names like Tim and Fonnie Flock, Buck Baker, Curtis Thomas, Fireball Roberts, and Lee Petty. Races oftentimes separating first and second place by over a minute. One event, 136 cars started. To this day, the largest field ever in a NASCAR-sanctioned race. A track littered with broken cars and spectators just inches from the madness. For obvious reasons, the sport was growing, and France knew the days on the beaches were numbered. The beaches were also becoming primetime real estate as high-rise hotels began being built all up and down the beaches. In 1958, the final race was held on the beaches of Daytona, ending an era that had so much to do with the growth and organization of stock car racing in America today. In 1958, the first ever Daytona 500 would be held. The new facility, the brainchild of France, took years to be funded and built. This 2.5-mile tri-oval took engineering innovations to even pave this high-bank superspeedway. Enough dirt was taken to build a 20-acre lake in the infield, named Lake Lloyd, named after the man who gave France his first job. Today, the track is very much as it was in 1958, having only been repaved once. A track with storylines in every notch of the wall and every bleacher in the stand. But no doubt, one of the most treacherous, as this track has taken Dale Earnhardt and Neil Bonnet along with 38 others. The facility's easily the nicest you'll find anywhere, and a name internationally known. A track that starts and ends the NASCAR season and brings countless other series a chance for drivers to test the limits of Daytona. While its location has moved 12 miles, Daytona Beach will forever be known for its roots in racing, speed, and creating the great sport of NASCAR. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that story. Be sure to go back and listen to our first installment of NASCAR Storied, Whiskey Bent and Title Bound, that Chris did a couple weeks ago. Also, a really great story about the roots of racing. Next up, we have a special guest this week. We love the history of the sport, as you can tell, and there is no more iconic family in NASCAR than the Wood family and the Wood brothers. So Jon Wood stops by.
Yeah, this is going to be an exciting interview. And one of the reasons is because we hear from an angle that you don't get to hear in the documentary. You don't get to hear every Sunday about the 21 team. And we talked to Jon a little bit about his racing career, but we dive into a lot of what the Wood family is about. And we also get to hear a little bit about their relationship with Penske and what has kept this team going through some of the hardest times in the sport. So without further ado, let's kick it over and get to Jon Wood.
Appreciate you being on. So we just kick it off. So you're the senior vice president at Wood Brothers, and we know you run the social media accounts as well. So first of all, how do you deal with all the hecklers and trolls these days? What do you got up your sleeve, the tricks? And second, what's a typical day-to-day look like right now?
Most of the time, the fans and the people I interact with are pretty favorable. Dating back to, well, particularly with Blaney, the years we had Blaney, it was rare to find somebody that wanted to give us trouble. Now going back to the tail end, when I first started doing all that with Trevor Bain, that's a totally different story. We caught crap from him all the time. Then came Paul Menard, and Paul is a little bit different. That was a different animal. We caught some flack from people occasionally, and again, you're talking a small minority of the total group. Paul is a very misunderstood guy, and I've said this for years now, particularly since I've gotten to know him a lot better. But what works to Paul's disadvantage is the fact that he's not on Twitter and he's not on Facebook, and he doesn't do that stuff. And the problem is it doesn't let people see the person and the guy that he is. And it's seeing some of the stuff that people say about him, I honestly don't blame him for feeling that way. But once you get to know him, and the people that have gotten to know him that I know personally, that they come away with a completely different perspective and a totally different respect for him. Matt Kenseth is probably a similar guy. You don't see a lot of Matt socially, but he's one of the funniest people you'll ever meet once you talk to him. And so I guess to stop dragging this out and give you a clear-cut answer, we don't typically have, I'm the number of people I've blocked is probably less than 12. And it's just, there are guys out there, I know Utter likes to throw the block. Dave Moody, he'll do it too in a heartbeat. I just don't. Now, muting somebody, that's fair game. But I don't know. I think that we need to provide an outlet. We need to be an outlet for fans and allow them to vent their frustrations and be aggravated when we do stupid stuff or make dumb decisions or dumb calls, wreck, do whatever, something that we do that's not okay. We should be called out for it. So I don't really have a problem with it.
Yeah. And seems to be one of the things that, as we talk to not only some of these like younger drivers in the sport, but we talk to everybody around the industry, it's just that's what makes NASCAR unique. And when there's folks and teams like you all out there who open that door and allow the fans to see the truth and be real with you guys, that's what really continues to grow the sport and keep people engaged, right?
Yeah. It's a totally different time now than really even when I was growing up or when I was racing. I don't know what I'm trying to say. When I was racing, it was a you had Speed Channel, you had all these little shows and side gigs that they had that showcased different aspects of motorsports and different aspects of NASCAR, but it didn't have that. Sorry, it didn't have that personal touch that social media brings. And so, like looking back to the little incident last night with Haley Deegan and the trouble that she got into, I think back to what would I have done if I were 19 and I had this sudden giant fan base, giant following, fame that's more or less overnight,
right?
And unlimited ability to say and do whatever you want, and people see it. I can't say that I wouldn't have made the same mistakes. I would like to think I wouldn't, but it's hard to think back and put yourself in the mindset of a 19-year-old.
Yeah, we had the benefit of growing up not in the limelight, so we made mistakes and nobody knew about them. And unfortunately for her, everyone's out there to watch it. But we love history of NASCAR, love it. So the Wood brothers are right up there and our favorite to talk about. And the drivers that have driven for the Wood brothers is staggering. So aside from Matt, the current driver, we'll make it easy on you. Who has been some of your favorite drivers to drive for the Wood brothers in your time or not?
Well, Bill Elliott would probably get partial credit anyway, for helping save our team. And I've never really, I may have said it a time or two, but I've never really thought of it and expressed it in these terms. Where we were toward the tail end of my driving career, where our team was a very, very dark, terrible, just god awful place. It wasn't a product of having bad people. We had some of the best employees and the best people that have ever been in this business. Fatback McSwain was both crew chief and then competition director for our team for a few years, and leading up to that point, we were missing races, myself and Ken Schrader both, because I was splitting the 21 car with Schrader. And it was back whenever you had to be in the top 35 in owner points to be guaranteed in to have a spot every week. And our cars were so bad that we couldn't qualify in on time, and so we would have needed to have been in the top 35. The way that year started out, Schrader ran the first 3 races, 3 or 4, I can't remember what it was, and he wrecked in a few of them, and it mired us pretty deep in points. In fact, I think my first race in Vegas that year, I think I finished like, I don't know, somewhere in the 20s. And that was the best finish that we had leading up to that point, if that tells you how bad our year started. So needless to say, we were outside the top 35. We didn't have any way of being in these races. And so the way things were looking, we were going to be missing multiple races throughout the year. And it kind of cascades. Once that cycle starts, you just can't get out of it. And just to stop for a second, I'm very glad that archaic style of entry is no longer, because it does prohibit growth. Anyway, back to my story. So we were missing races, and I was kind of talking it over with my dad and just saying, what are we going to do here? Because this is going to get ugly. And I don't remember if it was him or me, but one of us decided or suggested that maybe we call Bill Elliott and see if he would drive for us, starting in the 600 that year. I think it was 2007 or 8. I think it was 2008. No, 2007. Doesn't matter when it was. Anyway, so he hops in, and he didn't really do any better, but he did have that past champion provisional. Mm-hmm. So that's really what kept us going. We were really on life support, and it gave us time to regroup, rethink, and come up with a better plan of how we were going to, survive and make it. And as time went on, we sort of leveled out. Bill continued to drive for us, and then that led into the Trevor Bayne era. So
yeah, that's cool.
Forward,
I mean,
but yeah.
Yeah, that's cool because that's one of those angles that we didn't get to see in the documentary that came out on Motor Trend. And we saw there was that dark period where you all missed a Daytona 500 and due to that kind of archaic way of getting into a race. So we've seen all of these teams, and first one that comes to mind in motorsports is Williams Racing in F1 this year. And we've seen them sell off their team because they can't deal with the financials and they're not competitive. How have teams like the Wood brothers and Petty Motorsports, how do you all overcome those dark spots and not see the team go under? Is it because of somebody like Bill Elliott, or is it just that family camaraderie that keeps things moving forward? What's the secret sauce?
Well, for us, it would absolutely be the relationship we have with Ford. Had they not sort of recognized and seen the problems that we were having in tandem as we were seeing them and as they were happening, I don't think that the resolution or the solution would have come. Well, I know it wouldn't have had it not been for them. And so it's really just being or having, well, I guess back then it would have been about 65 years, because this right now we're in 71. So around 6 years ago when all this, or 8 years ago when all this was kind of going down, having 60 plus years of history with Ford Motor Company, it was that relationship that really fixed us and got us back on the right track. And I always look at things, I kind of have a warped view of life where one thing leads to another, and without every single peg falling into place the way it has, your life the way it is today would be totally different. If you just move one little piece years, just, I don't know, a day ago, 1,000 years ago, it doesn't matter. If anything would have been different, where we are right now today would be completely in a different place. And so even though we didn't get a charter, even though we made the mistake at the time of running a partial schedule, it was the right decision because it led to where we are right now. And I think back and I say, I wonder what could have happened had we, not had, let's just say, had Schrader not had those crashes or whatever it was that year. We'd been in the top 35, went on, not missed some races. For all we know, things would have gone differently. We wouldn't have had that eye-opening revelation that we all, and Ford included, had that where we did that big restructuring and regrouping. We may be out of business today had things gone better back then. So you can't really sit and dwell on what went wrong. You
Right.
kind of have to look at it like today things are going right. And so even though that was a sucky period, everything that happened led to us being successful in 2020. And it's really the only way you can look at it.
That's a great perspective. So now you have a technical alliance with Team Penske. I'm just curious, do you guys get to pick the driver, have as much input in picking the drivers as you once did back in the day?
Well, they obviously have some say too.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much because of our alliance, but because we kind of jointly share that Menards sponsorship. Menards is on both Blaney's car and our car, so sponsors have a tremendous amount of say. And it's not so much Team Penske as it is the Menards side, plus Motorcraft. Everybody's kind of got to be on the same page and pull in the same direction. But really, looking back, every driver that we've had, it wasn't a driver that we just said, okay, we need a great driver this year. Who can we go and pay a pile of money to? Like a Kurt Busch type, or like, I don't know, Matt, like some of these older veterans that aren't in development situations, that are just high paid, good drivers. We've never really been in that situation to need or want one. We've always been in a place where Ford or Penske or either any combination, or even Roush for that matter, at that point in time, every one of those groups needed a development driver or a driver to be developed, and we were that team. So now in the current era, so to speak, we had Blaney, and that was a Ford and Penske joint effort. They both wanted him developed, and I would say he developed quite well. Then he went on to Team Penske. Then Paul came along. We also really, really, really incredibly badly needed that other half of the year sponsorship. Our motorcraft sponsorship is for just under a half a season, and so without the Menards piece, we wouldn't have enough. So
Right.
it was like manna from the sky when Paul came along. Just a perfect situation. It was a veteran driver. It completed our funding, I guess you could say, and it was exactly what we needed.
Awesome.
Then he chose to retire, and now we have Matt.
Cool. And just a quick follow-up on that one. Is it kind of the same way with the engineering? I mean, we know you all have some of the best engineers in the garage, and we know some of the cars are built over at the Penske shop, but when it comes to that piece, do you all have more of a say there, since obviously the sponsors aren't engineers of these things?
It's kind of a joint effort still. I mean, we have our own employees that are solely ours, and then Penske has some employees that we use. We use one of their pit crews, which has been that way for as long as I can remember. It just works, and it goes without saying, without this partnership with them, there's no question that
Right.
we wouldn't be having this talk right now.
Awesome. Yeah, well, you mentioned a little bit earlier, John, that you were racing yourself and you were successful. You won some truck races, and you had a big win at Martinsville that could be considered your hometown track, even though it's a couple of hours away from y'all. But
30 minutes. It's 30 minutes from Stewart. So I'm from
it is
Stewart.
30 minutes from Stewart.
Yeah,
okay.
Close.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I was thinking of where the museum is. So
the museum is in Stewart, and
okay.
And our shop is in Charlotte. So they're easy to get backwards. But yeah,
okay.
So our shop was always up there, and then right around whenever Ricky Rudd started driving, that's when everything moved to Charlotte.
Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, when you were driving and you were seeing some success, what were some of your favorite tracks? I mean, was it a track like Martinsville or the tracks up in Virginia, or what was your favorite?
I never liked Richmond, not at all, like not even a little bit. And to this day, I don't even like going up there. I don't, maybe it's because every time I go, I end up with a speeding ticket or something, which, anybody that's driven from Charlotte to Richmond can tell you how bad the speed traps are. But yeah, I don't like Richmond. I really like Martinsville, and I always have. I don't really have any rhyme or reason. It isn't because it's a hometown track. I just always ran well there. And I don't know why. I just did. So yeah, that was one of my favorites. I don't know. I didn't really have one particular. I just, obviously the tracks that I did well at I liked, and the ones that I didn't I hated.
For sure. And we heard a little bit of a story that Dale Jarrett gifted you your first go-kart when you were a kid. That sounds like a pretty cool experience to us. Is there truth to that story?
Yeah, a little. Well, yeah, it's true. So Jason, Dale's son, was racing go-karts prior to when I jumped into it. And I guess he had gone on to something bigger, late models or something. And Dale still had this little, it wasn't much, believe me. It was just a regular straight rail, like something you would see, not necessarily the driver wearing a football helmet, but close. And a little tiny trailer that had a little single axle, just the bare minimum. But it did come from Dale. He was driving for us at the I think he had to have been 96. Wouldn't he have been driving for us at the time?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think
Let's
I
just
watched
say
the
he was.
documentary today, so we'll say he was. If we're wrong, we'll correct it later.
He sold it to my dad. For all I know, he gave it to him because, again, it wasn't much. I do still have that thing. I'm
that's cool.
About 90% sure. Well, I don't. My dad does. But yeah, he did.
So you mentioned the museum, the shop. Looks so cool from pictures. What is the most interesting or just like the strangest thing you guys got in there?
Leonard. So as everything has shifted, and I don't know how to say this without it sounding negative towards him, but every successful, smart person, they can only stay relevant in whatever business it is, or sport, in this case sport, for so long, and then it kind of just moves away. And Leonard is without a doubt the smartest person I've ever met.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that it's so much of the fact that the sport has just become more engineering based, technology based. I don't know that it's that, or if it's just the fact that now majority of the stuff is done through our alliance with Team Penske, and he just doesn't have a spot. It's one or the other. But anyway, Leonard needed something to keep him busy, so we had him doing a combination of things. He was restoring old cars that were replicas or reproductions of race cars that we had raced throughout the years. And we do have a copy of every generation of NASCAR race car, from a Gen 1 to the current Gen 6. It is Gen 6 now, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have every one of them. And a few of them were cars that Leonard pretty much spearheaded in building, or they're actual cars that we raced. But that's one thing he does. The other thing is, when he's not doing those deals, he's so talented, he can build anything. And he's always been into remote control cars. I myself never really was. I was always into RC planes. So Leonard would help me build my planes. He would be building his cars. And recently he got the bright idea. So he bought this new house up in Stewart. I don't really know why he moved from the house he lived in prior, but he bought and built a brand new house up there, and it had a lot of grass that needed mowing. He didn't like to push mow, and for whatever reason, he didn't think the riding mower was big enough. So he went and built a mower, two mowers. One that this thing looks like a monster truck version of a lawnmower. It's huge, and he built it. You ride that one. But then he also built one that's remote controlled, and he can just stand there with an RC with like I guess he uses a 4-channel radio, but he can just stand there and it's got the same mower deck size as a push mower, so it'd be like a 19 or 20-inch blade, and he can just stand there and that thing will mow.
That's hilarious.
We've got those up there. We got a bunch of different things.
That's cool.
That's the coolest part.
Yeah, we're hoping to get out there and see that once all this craziness is over at some point. But we've got a few minutes left here. I want to hear your perspective, since you were talking about Leonard's engineering prowess and how things have changed. What are your thoughts on this next gen car coming out?
I was a little disappointed when it was pushed back. I think that it's going to invite a more diverse group of successful teams. Right now, you see the same 6 or 8 teams, 10, let's just say 10, the same 10 teams that win every week. And outside those, it's just, if it's not a plate race, nobody else really has a chance. And I believe, and I could totally be wrong, but I think that it will help balance the competitive aspect of the sport out some. I don't know how much, but it has to do it to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I'm just anxiously awaiting to see what it does. I really have no opinion other than that.
Good. Yeah, I think we're all hoping. We're excited about it. We know that everybody has their little quirks about what they're upset with, whether it be possibly just number moving on the paint or one lug nut come into the thing. Everybody seems to have something to be upset about.
Yeah, NASCAR fans are a a group that don't like change. If I've learned anything, that's one thing that I've learned. And I to some degree, I kind of understand it, but you can't keep doing the same. And it's not just NASCAR fans. I say that. I think back to whenever IndyCar went to the windscreen and F1 went to that halo bar.
Yep.
Those fans, they nearly lost their minds over it. And it's like, come on. I mean, some of this stuff is common sense, needs to happen. The single lug, it's cheaper for the teams. Why would just that alone? Why would you not be okay with it? But beyond that, it's safer, cheaper, and it's the mechanics of a pit stop are still going to look the same. What outside of the first 2 or 3 races, when TV is really honed in and talking about it, yeah, you're going to see it then. But beyond that, it's just they'll be a little bit faster on either side, but for the most part, nothing's really going to change. So, and then the decal, yeah, they're mad about that one too. But again, I really don't have an opinion. If it helps sponsors be more or get some more extra value because their logos are bigger, then that's good. But I really don't care. It makes no difference to me.
I think we're in the same boat as you. So, sorry we had a little bit of a technical issue at the beginning, and we want to make sure that you can jump off here at 7. But we really appreciate you coming on and talking to us. We really enjoy learning more about your family and the team and hearing a little bit about your racing career as well. So we appreciate having you on.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it.
All righty. Well, we hope to see you out at the track someday if they start letting us come out again.
Yeah, tell me about it.
All righty, John. We'll talk to you later.
All right, thanks, guys. See you.
Bye.
Well, that was a cool interview. Definitely awesome to hear his perspective about stuff that we typically don't hear. And I implore you, if you have not seen this documentary that Motor Trend came out with, it's so good. It really explains the roots of their family, their values and dedication in NASCAR perfectly. And it makes my eyes water up every time I've watched it. I've watched it 3 times and it's great. So be sure and go watch that. I also got the Motor Trend app going on my TV over the off season. I've been watching some of the shows they have and they're really good. So you guys check that out if you can.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. I can't say enough about John coming on and just being able to dive more into that family. I don't think you could have him on enough times to hear some of the stories that he's able to give.
Oh yeah, there's not enough time. But moving on, it is time for another episode of True or False, my friend.
Oh goodness, we're bringing this back.
We are. Everybody wants to hear me try to stump you, so here we go. You ready?
All right. Yep, I'll ready as I'll ever be.
All right, so I have tucked away these questions over the off season in my noggin, and I put them on paper today.
Big
and
noggin.
We're gonna, yeah, big noggin, and my Peyton Manning forehead over here, and we're gonna call this the NASCAR 1940s to 1960s edition. There's some randomness in here, but they're all on the same page here. So number 1, kicking it off. Comedian and actor Bob Hope was part owner in Riverside International Speedway in California. True or false?
True.
That is true. Did you know that?
I did. That's one of the things when we were talking about some of the lost speedways back in season 1. That was one of the things that I figured out because I really wanted Riverside and that road course to be there, but now there's like some community development on top of it. So that's one of the things I learned as I was searching around.
Yeah, and I think I think a big reason why, like looking back at the history of the track of why they got rid of it is probably just revenue and income were dwindling, but also how treacherous that track was. I didn't realize how many people died at that track. Joe Weatherly died at that track. There was AJ Foyt almost died. They were just going to leave his body in the middle of the track until the race was over. But apparently like somebody noticed that he was still alive or something. Les Richter, the famous football player for the LA Rams, he was the operator of the track. There's like so many good nuggets about that track.
Yeah. And
bad nuggets.
And bad nuggets. God. All right. Moving on. Question 2.
All right, number 2, R.J. Reynolds, the company who produced Winston cigarettes and the major sponsor of the Winston Cup, were the ones that pushed NASCAR for the removal of dirt tracks. True or false?
True.
It is true. Dang, you're really starting this off good.
That's another one. And coming up on NASCAR Storied, we are going to have a little story about Winston and their impact on the overall naming sponsor of the Cup Series and NASCAR. We'll call that one Thank You for Smoking. So stay tuned for that NASCAR Storied.
That's a good name. Yeah, they definitely had a big impact. They also pushed for longer races. That was another thing that they pushed for.
Which we've kind of poo-pooed.
Yeah. Shame on you, cigarette companies. All right. Number 3, the Streamline Hotel, the birthplace of NASCAR, was bulldozed in 1996.
False.
That is false. You're just on fire right now.
Yeah, I don't know why that one is, but I figured you were going to throw a false one in there.
Very strategic of you. Yes, it is false. It is still standing. It's very sleek and modern these days, but also has a bit of history in there. So I've been up to the top floor, to the rooftop bar, and I've never stayed there because if you go to the beach, you kind of want to be on the beach, and it's across the street from the beach, and there's high-rise hotels in front. So
it's down in Daytona?
Yeah, it's in Daytona.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, like right there on the main strip. It's like maybe 2 blocks from like that little carnival area that they have in the boardwalk.
Oh, yeah. Yep, cool.
All right, moving on. Number 4, Bruton Smith, before he became the famous promoter owner that he is, led the National Stock Car Racing Association, or NISCRA, a direct competitor of NASCAR.
Well, if he did, I can see why he lost out. Just not nearly, doesn't roll off the tongue like NASCAR, NISCRA. I'm going to say true.
It is true.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a direct competitor. It eventually merged. So Bruton and Bill France, they got together and like, okay, let's partner on this.
We can make a lot of money if we run a monopoly on this thing.
Hey, you watching the NISCRA race this weekend?
Man, I went down to the NASCAR race last week and I just got plastered.
All right. Moving on. Number 5, NASCAR driver Tim Flock used to drive around in his race car with a monkey named Jocko.
True.
That is true. I thought
that is such a dumb fact. Like, it's not dumb. It's definitely interesting, but like, why would you dream that up and it not be true?
Yeah, I don't know. It's true. And he wore a safety belt. And one day he got out of his seatbelt and he got like knocked out by a pebble. And then he woke up and freaked out and like was clawing Tim. So he stopped and they took the monkey out and it probably cost him the win.
What?
That's real life NASCAR.
I mean, to describe for everybody listening to this, if you could see my chin slowly dropping as every word came out of Bart's mouth, it just got more drastic. Knocked out by a pebble, woke up, attacked the owner.
Yep.
Co-pilot, I guess you could say.
Yep.
And never rode in the car again. Okay. 5 for 5.
All right, number 6. Darlington was built in the egg shape that it is to avoid a nearby highway. True. Or false? That is false. A fish pond of the landowner caused the egg shape.
Really?
Yeah, stumped you.
Oh, man. That's a good one. I'll give you that. All right.
You got a lot of different turns going on at Darlington. That's why it's so hard. The Lady in Black. All right, moving on. Number 7. Martinsville is currently the oldest track on the current NASCAR schedule.
Martinsville is the oldest track on the current NASCAR schedule. That's false.
That is false. Which one is it?
I don't know. I want to say, man, we've talked about stuff like this before. We've talked about the age of tracks. It's definitely not Daytona.
I wouldn't have guessed this. I did not know this.
You didn't know this, so I'm going to have to say the oldest track on the schedule. I'm just going to let it rip. Maybe it's Richmond?
Are you looking at your phone?
No.
You're just pulling that out of your
I'm
noggin?
not. Here. My phone's right here off.
It's Richmond. 1946, that track was built.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, one of the things that I want to talk about later on, and people are going to get this in a story eventually too, Virginia has a rich history of racing. And because of Florida and because of North Carolina, we don't look at it as much, but we go to Virginia 4 times a year. And so my grandfather's from there, and I've got a lot of family from there that were big NASCAR fans. And there's history there that nobody even taps into. So that's why I went Richmond next. It seems like one of the older states in the union, one of the older tracks that could have been built. That's my strategy there.
Yeah, thank you for that in-depth explanation.
You're welcome.
So it was Richmond 46, Martinsville 47. So only 1 year difference there. They're basically the same age. Darlington 50. Watkins Glen is pretty old, 56.
Wow.
Daytona 59, and then Charlotte and Atlanta were both built in 60. All right, number 8, driver and team owner for Red Byron, Raymond Parks, was indeed from Dawsonville, Georgia.
False.
It's true.
What?
Yeah, Raymond Parks was from Dawsonville, Georgia. If you ever read...
I just did the moonshine. I did the Whiskey Bent and Title Bound, and I didn't know that. And I talked about Raymond Parks throughout the whole thing. That makes me look so stupid.
Well, when I did this, when I was on the other end of this, I was answering questions that I knew the answer to, the wrong answer. So the stress of it can get to you, man. So if you read the book, Driving with the Devil, it explains it in there. It's a bit long-winded at the beginning, but it gets good towards the middle and end. So would recommend reading that. All right, so moving on. Number 9, you have only missed 2. So number 9, Lee Petty only achieved 2 NASCAR Cup championships. True or false?
False.
Yes, that is false. How many did he achieve?
Lee Petty?
Yeah.
Is he I think only 1, right? Or is he a 4-timer?
No, he's a 3-timer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, nobody.
All guesses wrong, but hey, it's not multiple choice. It's true, false.
Yep. But everybody focuses on Richard Petty in his 7, of course, rightfully so. But nobody talks about Lee Petty. So
yeah,
it's also a long time ago.
Right.
All right, final
question. So
I've
automatically got my best right now. My best previously was 7.
Oh, really?
10,
so
I think.
Yeah, you got.
I'm automatically 8 out of 10 right now. Right?
No, you missed 2, and we're on question 10.
Yeah. So.
Your best. Ooh. Yeah, your best right now, if you can get this question right. A lot of pressure.
I was a journalism major, not a math major. Don't judge me.
All right, here we go. Number 10, mechanic Smokey Unick was the person who came up with that name and acronym NASCAR.
False.
It is false. Who was it?
I don't know who came up with it. I would think Big Bill France. I would think Senior, because he had the strictly stock. He had started doing the strictly stock stuff, and then they associated NASCAR, and it became the National Association of Stock Car Auto Racing. But I could be wrong. So
this is a bit of like maybe like an unknown, I think. Red Vogt from Atlanta, the famous mechanic, he basically like built a majority of everyone who was good in the 40s and 50s cars. It's said that he came up with the name. The name actually didn't come out of the talks at the Streamline Hotel. It changed afterwards from whatever they decided. Okay. But apparently it was him. Red Vogt. Good for him. Yeah, which there's not a ton of information on him, like on the internet. Like there's a lot about him in that book, Driving with the Devil, but there isn't so much online. So I don't know. Maybe it's wrong. I don't know. Maybe it's right. So I think what you're trying to gloss over at this point is we thought I was going to be thoroughly fooled by 40s to 60s NASCAR, but it was your best ever. My best ever. 80%. Might be my best grade ever since high school. Well, you still got your best. So, hey, until next time, I'm going to continue to stump you. This has been True or False. All right, it's the off season, but there's still news out there. So let's cover some notable news. So first out of the gate, Hailie Deegan said an insensitive word most recently on a Twitch live stream iRacing event. And man, I feel for her, but also come on, Haley Deegan, you're supposed to be a role model and you can't do stuff like this. So I feel for her in the sense that when I was her age, I was making mistakes and nobody knew about them. Or if I got in trouble, it was at school.
Mm-hmm.
And, you get sent to detention, not a big deal. But she's doing everything in the limelight. What do you think about it?
Well, I think it's one of those situations, like you said, when you and I were growing up, it was while we were in college where Twitter was becoming popular, Instagram was becoming popular after we left college. We didn't really have these platforms where when we were doing things, when we were messing up and making mistakes, if you made a big mistake, it got in like your local paper that got delivered to everybody. But you had to really mess up for that to happen. So, obviously the word that she used we're against. I have family members that have developmental disabilities. We've had NASCAR Sammy on here. We are huge proponents of making sure that NASCAR is diverse. At the same time, she brings diversity to this sport, and she is a girl that is bringing a lot of attention. She has talent, but we're also seeing that there are still 18 and 19-year-olds out there that have some growing to do, that have to figure things out. And she's just figuring it out under the limelight. And while that's unfortunate, it's a burden that she's chosen to bear. So I really feel like she's, I don't think she's a bad person. I think she did a bad thing, made a mistake. And hopefully she can continue to grow from these instances where she's just making some immature mistakes, which I made plenty of at 18 or 19 years old myself.
Mm-hmm. And not to like get in the war of like what insensitive word ranks where. Like I see a lot of people on social media just kind of discounting it and saying, get over it. Everyone's sissies these days. They can't handle anything, which is like, they're incredibly out of touch with reality. That's just like, I don't know why you wouldn't not try to not do something that offends an entire group of people. And
I completely agree. It's a humanity thing. And we talked about this way back with the Bubba Wallace thing. Even though it turned out not to be what it was thought to be, it is a humanity issue. We want to see the sport grow. We want to see it become more diverse and more inclusive. No matter what the word that is used, whether it's a grown man or whether it's a young girl using whatever word it may be, we want people to feel accepted in this sport. And I think Haley Deegan's going to do a good job. I think she's going to turn it around. In my opinion, she's somebody that wants to make the sport a better place and wants to make it more inclusive, I hope. And that's what I believe. So I think that we're going to see her go through it just as Kyle Larson did. But I mean, the growing pains in NASCAR are real. We're coming from a place that was a little bit more of a struggle than places, say, like the NFL and the NBA. So we're feeling those growing pains now, but I think on the other side of it, it's going to be good.
Yeah, well said. So moving on to the next hot topic of the week, NASCAR has announced that they may permanently move the numbers back like they did at the All-Star race this past year in Bristol. And the reasoning is to make more room for the sponsor. So sponsors see that and it's more attractive to them. They get more visibility. What do you think about this?
I don't care. We kind of talked about it. We kind of talked about it in our interview with Jon Wood. If it helps the sport move forward, I do not care. I plain and simple. I think it looked fine. I definitely there were people, Lionel released the new wave of NASCAR Authentics, and people were losing their minds over like, why would we want to collect these? These are the all-star race ones where the number, I don't care. If it moves the sport forward, if it gives people an opportunity and sponsors an opportunity to make money less of an issue in this sport, I'm fine with it. What's your opinion on it?
Yeah, again, I don't really care either. I would not be offended if they did it. And if they don't, great as well. The thing is that they're trying to make moves to attract sponsorship. Sponsorship dollars have moved away from NASCAR over the past 10 years or so, ever since the late early 2000s. Is that a phrase? The late early 2000s?
No, late 90s, early 2000s is what the phrase would be.
I meant to, like 2007, 8, when like the housing crisis happened, like
Late
that's
2010s.
the is that right? No, because
Yeah,
it was
the late
before 2010.
The late 2000s.
Yeah, but that sounds weird too. Anyways, moving on. Yeah. So, anyways, sponsorship dollars are leaving, and my boss, he used to work for Valvoline, and they're big sponsors in NASCAR, and they always have been. And so we talked a little bit about the return on investment, and for a sponsorship such as NASCAR, it's really hard to track the return on investment of if you're actually getting a return on having your name or product on a car. So the way I kind of see it is that NASCAR isn't really for every product or service. Your product would really have to be really in the realm of fans of NASCAR to really be a success. But I think it's also on the sponsor to do more than what most sponsors do. And unfortunately, that takes a lot of money because that's social media engagement, that's commercials, that's getting your driver to be involved in funny things. Not every sponsor wants that to be a thing. So what can NASCAR do? I don't know that this is the right answer, but I definitely think that them at least trying is a great thing.
Well, and I think as much as we sit here and like pound NASCAR, listen to the fans, listen to the fans, listen to the fans, I think they're out there listening to sponsors and as well. And I don't think that they would be making a move like this haphazardly, just being like, we're going to change the way that a NASCAR has looked since the dawn of time to make sponsors happy without sponsors going, hey, we need things to be a little bit more prominent. And we know that it's not going to be a huge thing for the TV viewing. You don't see the sides of the car, you know, unless they're doing radioactive where it's like, we're not seeing the sides of the cars that often. We can see the numbers on top. So I think it's an aftermarket move. It's something when you're getting a die cast and you're seeing the product afterwards and when you're seeing it in victory lane. So I don't think they would have made this move haphazardly. That's just not the way that Steve Phelps has done things since he's taken the reins.
Yeah, and I feel like the smart thing to do, and which they probably did this because they tested it at the All-Star race, is doing some consumer research behind it. So having a test of people look at the difference, see if they remember things, sponsors more of cars. So I'm sure that's something that they tested. So another hot topic, lots of hot topics going on. Dirt is currently sitting on Bristol. And it seems to be the consensus across all of social media that everyone hates it. I don't see a lot of people saying that they like it. And having Bob Pockrass on last week, he actually gave me a real reason where most people are just like, I think it's going to suck. He's like, the cars are too heavy. The cars weren't built for dirt. So those are real reasons why this race might be a flop. So do you think it's going to be a success, or do you think it's going to be a flop?
I don't know. I think Bob also talked to us about Eldora, and he thought that Eldora was going to be a flop because the trucks weren't built for dirt. They don't go as fast as the dirt late models, and he was wrong. And while I think that these cars aren't built for that, I also think that these are some of the most brilliant minds in the car engineering world. I think they're going to find a way to make this attractive. And we've got some people now who are going to be in the Cup Series who are phenomenal dirt racers. And I have a feeling they could put my 2014 Chevy Malibu on dirt and make it look like they're having fun going around in circles. So I'm excited about it. If it busts, guess what? They move the dirt out, and God forbid the person's job who has to move all that dirt out of there.
Gosh.
But aside from that, they move it out and they never do it again. But we asked, this goes back to what we said at the end of the season. We wanted something different. Every single fan was screaming from the mountaintop, give us something different. They give us something different. And then before we even see what the result is, everybody's going, well, that's not the hell what we want. We don't like that. And I'm just trying to hold out my criticism until I see what happens on the track.
Yeah, and there's certainly going to be learning curves here. This is not something that the sport's seen for like, God, decades.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole group of NASCAR drivers who've never even really raced on dirt. They don't have a lot of experience, but it's going to be like going to any new track like the Roval. People will figure it out. Like you may run into the heartburn turn like as a
Yeah.
group, but you'll figure it out next year. So I think there we will see some big drivers specifically flop on it. But I love that NASCAR is trying because NASCAR is the end all be all of the greatest tier of the sport. So if you're running the entire top tier of the sport and excluding an entire area of the sport at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not, you wouldn't consider them the best of the best. You're just the best of the best on concrete or pavement. So
Yeah, and that's one thing, like you just did a story about the beaches of Daytona. And one
sand.
of the things, yeah, one of the things we want to look at later on in NASCAR Storied, and sorry to keep shamelessly plugging the series we're doing, but it's one of the things that I want to look at later on is why did we move away from from the racing that people said was so competitive? When Dale Jr.'s doing the Lost Speedway series, you're not seeing him go to an overwhelmingly high amount of asphalt tracks. It's a solid mix, and we were really seeing well-rounded racers. And the one complaint now is people come in and say, oh, they haven't proven their worth in all these different places. Well, now they're getting to, and everybody's complaining about it. So you can't have your cake and eat it too in this situation. Let it happen. If it sucks, it sucks. They probably won't do it again.
Right. All right, final question of the evening. We put out a social poll on Twitter, best average finish at the end of the 2021 season. We added these 4 drivers as options. Bubba Wallace in the 23XI team, Eric Jones at Richard Petty, Corey LaJoie at Spire, and Ross Chastain at Chip Ganassi. So Bubba Wallace came in first, and he won by a good margin. Then we got Eric Jones, followed by tied in third, Corey LaJoie and Ross Chastain. Do you think this is accurate?
I do. And the reason that I think Bubba is going to be in the lead, and this is something that spans far beyond NASCAR, in my opinion, is Michael Jordan. And we have seen Denny Hamlin, and he doesn't have a championship yet. Everybody wants him to win one. It's clear in certain circumstances, the double yellow line, that NASCAR wants him to win a championship for the sport. An incredible racer, but Michael Jordan doesn't half-ass anything he does. I mean, if you go and watch the documentary that they did on The Last Dance, this guy was making up stories in his head to get him mad to go into a game to beat other people, like making up, oh, he said something about my mama, and then he goes out and scores like 60 points on the guy the next game. I don't think he half-asses anything he does. So I don't think he's going to be the first minority owner in NASCAR to come in and shit the bed proverbially. I don't think that's going to happen with Michael Jordan. That's why I think that's correct. Are you kind of in line with what the fans told us?
Well, I do think that Bubba will do well with the 2311 team, and I think there's going to be a lot of funding and bright minds behind it, but it's a new team. So getting started and working with an entire group of people that you haven't really, it kind of takes a while to click and get in the rhythm of things. So I don't necessarily think they're going to just come out with success right out of the gate. I think by the end of the year, they may have dialed in a bit more. I actually think that Corey LaJoie will have the best average finish at the end of the year. And the reason why I think this is that he's been in the sport a while and racing in Cup for a while for lower funded teams. He's not bad by any means. He's definitely taking what he's got and getting more out of it. And with Spire, they're showing more momentum as one of those lower funded teams than any other team that you see. You can tell that they're headed in the right direction. They've got Steve Letarte on board as a consultant. They've got partnerships with Hendrick. So I do think that we're going to see a lot more out of him. And I look forward to seeing that team do better.
I could see that.
Eric Jones, I think that they'll do okay. I think it'll probably be about where Bubba was with him if they continue with good sponsorship and funding of the team. And then with Ross Chastain, he's the only newcomer to the Cup out of anyone. and he's with a good team with Chip Ganassi, but there is definitely a lot of learning curves for those drivers. It's a completely different car, so I don't think that he's going to exceed any of the other 3 drivers throughout the year.
I agree with that. And, I'd love to see Corey LaJoie just perform really well. His key phrase, we've said it before, is stacking pennies. And I'm ready to see him excel. He wrote that heartfelt letter to Hendrick trying to get the 48 ride. So I'm excited to see him. I'm not really thinking Eric Jones is going to do much above the 19 to 20th average finish. But I really see Corey LaJoie and Bubba Wallace as the possible standouts going into 2021. So it'll be exciting. We should do an update, every quarter of the season to see how this turns out, because it'll be really interesting between these 4 because all of them have talent.
Yeah, and to continuously to plug Motor Trend's documentaries, I've watched all of them. I've watched all of them over the off season, and there's one called The Drive to Daytona. And they focus on Corey LaJoie, Austin Dillon, and Tyler Reddick. And Corey LaJoie, man, he is just a real person. And you know how I've talked about how you select your favorite driver. It's like, how good are they? How dedicated are they? And then what their personality is like. And he's just like a genuine human who is just out there doing what he can to make it. He works at his parents, Randy LaJoie, that works at his seat company, making seats. He's a fabricator.
Yeah.
He drives an old RV to races. He's not being flown. Like, all of that just made me really like him a lot more. Didn't dislike him by any means before that.
He has that opportunity to take Spire to the next level. I think they made a good move by putting him in there. I just hope they give the money to him. I hope they give him the backing and the engineering capability to make it happen. We thank you all for tuning in to the 26th episode of Going In Tight, Coming Out Loose. We are chugging along. We are off to a fun start to 2021 and our second season. We've had on Bob Pockris last week. You can go listen to that interview. Jon Wood this week. We are excited. Next week, we're going to have on Clay Rogers, who has seen a ton of success in some of the other racing series across the nation. So that is going to be a lot of fun. As always, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at goingintight_pod. You can find us on Facebook. You can also find all of our episodes and some of the stories that we've written and shared as well on goingintightpodcast.com. We look forward to talking to you all next week.
Peace.